Thank you. All right, good evening. Good evening. I call to order the regular meeting of the Grover Beach City Council, Tuesday, October 14th, 2025. This meeting may also be viewed on cable channel 20 in Grover Beach and is available on live streaming on www.slow-span.org. Members of the public may provide public comment during the meeting by attending the meeting or calling 805-321-6639. The phone line is open now. Tonight, our flag salute will be presented by Jack Quint, and he's going to come over here and stand over here while I talk about him a little bit. Jack, that is Jack. Jack is 11 years old and in the 6th grade at Grover Beach Elementary School. Jack likes PE the most because it is one of the ways he exercises at school. In the classroom, Jack likes math the best. He enjoys living on the Central Coast because every day after he does his homework, his dad takes him surfing. And that's Dad right there. In school, Jack would like to study technology so that he can work for a large company or a well-known video game brand, such as Microsoft or PlayStation. Outside of school, his hobbies include playing video games on his Xbox, such as Fortnite and Minecraft. He also likes Rubik's Cube puzzles and can solve one in under 30 seconds. We should have brought one. Yes. You'll have to show us later. Another interest of Jack's is going on roller coasters, especially scary ones like X2 at Six Flags Magic Mountain in Valencia. Jack is accompanied by his dad, Jack. All right, if everybody will please rise and we'll let him take the lead.
Of the United States of America and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, may we have the roll call, please, City Clerk Sims?
Here.
Here.
Councilmember Wyrick.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Robert.
Here.
And Mayor D.
Here. Thank you. Now I will call on Acting City Attorney, Ms. Bras Gonzalez, for the closed session announcements.
On Monday, September 22nd, 2025, the City Council met in closed session and there were no reportable actions.
Thank you so much. Now on to agenda review. Council members, do any of you want to make any changes or questions, changes you want to make on the agenda? All right, may I have a motion to approve as presented?
I move to approve as presented.
Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, we have consensus. Now on to our ceremonial calendar, which we have many items under this category. We're going to start with the proclamation for Filipino American History Month, and I have asked Councilmember Wyrick to read this for us.
Thank you, Mayor. It's my privilege to read the proclamation of the Grover Beach City Council declaring the month of October as Filipino American History Month. Whereas in 2009, U.S. Congress recognized October as Filipino American History Month in the United States, and whereas Filipino Americans are the second largest Asian American group in the nation and the third largest ethnic group in California. And whereas the celebration of Filipino American History Month in October commemorates the first recorded presence of Filipinos in the continental United States, which occurred on October 18th, 1587, when Luzon's Indios came ashore from the Spanish galleon Nuestra Senora de Esperanza and landed at what is now Morro Bay, California. And whereas through the development of these three institutions, Filipino American Studies, Filipino American National Historical Society, and Filipino American History Month, we recognize how Filipino Americans have initiated collective grassroots efforts to ensure that their voices are heard, that their experiences are recognized, and that their histories are told. And whereas we now acknowledge these major historical markers in our community, and we encourage Filipino Americans and their allies across the country to collectively celebrate Filipino American Month 2025 with these legacies in mind. And whereas in acknowledging the many legacies created by Filipino Americans across the United States, we encourage our community members to brainstorm ways to create a more sustainable impact for future generations of Filipino American communities too. And now therefore be it resolved, the Grover Beach City Council encourages all citizens to learn and celebrate the rich heritage of Filipino Americans. It does hereby officially proclaim that the month of October 2025 as Filipino American History Month.
And we don't have anybody here to accept it, but I'm sure that Councilmember Wyrick will make sure it gets in the right hands.
Yep, I'll make sure it gets delivered to our local Filipino Community Center in Grover Beach.
Thank you very much. Okay, now on to the proclamation for San Luis Obispo County Apprenticeship Week. And I asked Mayor Pro Tem Robert to read it for me. And we also have Diana Marin from the Workforce Development Board, and she will accept it on behalf of them.
Thank you. Proclamation of the Grover Beach City Council recognizing October 13th through the 19th, 2025, San Luis Obispo County Apprenticeship Week. Whereas the Workforce Development Board of San Luis Obispo County, Central Coast Construction Trades, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Local 639, and Pipe Union UA Local 403 have partnered to expand apprenticeship opportunities and head of household jobs in the construction trades in City of Grover Beach and San Luis Obispo County. And whereas the advancement and well-being of the City of Grover Beach, San Luis Obispo County, State of California, and United States of America depends upon the continued development of the skill and trained workforce in the building and construction trades. And an ever-growing number of jobs creators and career seekers are discovering the benefits of apprenticeships' unique learn while you earn model. And whereas the City of Grover Beach recognizes the robust apprenticeship programs provide tangible value to both job creators and apprentices with the potential of increased productivity, improved diversity and inclusions, and reduce recruitment and training costs while providing a pathway to prosperous high-wage middle-class careers for job seekers. And whereas San Luis Obispo County Apprenticeship Week is raising awareness of the vital role apprenticeships provide in creating a qualified and highly skilled workforce in the building and construction trades in the City of Grover Beach, the County of San Luis Obispo, and across the nation. And whereas in recognition of SLO County Apprenticeship Week, the Workforce Development Board of San Luis Obispo County, the Central Coast Construction Trades, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Local 639, and the Pipe Trades UA Local 403 are hosting an apprenticeship forum and job fair on Wednesday, October 15th from 11 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at the Pipe Trades Hall located at 3710 Broad Street in San Luis Obispo. Now therefore be it resolved that the Grover Beach City Council does hereby officially recognize San Luis Obispo County Apprenticeship Week from October 13th to the 19th, 2025, and encourages the community to participate in the local apprenticeship forum and job fair. Thank you.
Would you like to come up and say a few words? And then I think what we'll do is we'll read all of our proclamations and then we'll take photos afterwards. So go ahead, Ms. Marin.
Thank you so much for allowing us this opportunity. On behalf of the Workforce Development Board of San Luis Obispo County, I'd like to extend our sincere appreciation to the City of Grover Beach for recognizing Apprenticeship Week through this proclamation. Your leadership and support highlight the critical importance of apprenticeship programs in strengthening our local workforce and building a more resilient regional economy. San Luis Obispo County faces a job quality challenge, with 57% of workers employed in low-wage, lower-skilled jobs, and many working families unable to meet basic needs. In fact, for a family of 4 to reach self-sufficiency in SLO County, they need to be working at least 2.5 jobs. Construction apprenticeship offers a proven solution. These jobs provide living wages, long-term career growth, and economic mobility. Did you know that 77% of construction jobs in SLO County pay above the median wage, making them a viable solution to addressing economic insecurity? The return investment on these careers is significant. For every 100 local construction jobs in the county infrastructure projects, 49 additional jobs are created along the supply chain. 11.4 million in labor income is generated for local residents, and these local workers contribute to $525,000 in local taxes, $903,000 in state taxes, and $2.2 billion in federal tax revenue. But to fully realize these benefits, we must keep these jobs local. With local hire initiatives, these economic and fiscal gains leave the region. By incorporating local hire requirements, we ensure these jobs go to our neighbors and to support families here in Grover Beach and across the county. Through programs like our MC3 Multi-Craft Core Curriculum Pre-Apprenticeship Program, we've enrolled 116 individuals and recently celebrated the graduation of our latest cohort of 20 trade professionals here in San Luis Obispo County. Programs like MC3 in collaboration with our union trades partners are preparing local residents to step into high-quality apprenticeship opportunities and build lifelong careers. I'd like to invite you, as Mayor Pro Tem just mentioned, to two events that are happening actually tomorrow. The first is the Construction Trades Apprenticeship Forum and Job Fair. This is the third annual, and it's taking place at the Plumbers and Pipe Fitters from 11 to 1. That's training centers located at 3710 Broad Street in SLO. And at this event, you'll get to explore hands-on demonstrations and learn about the Earn and Learn model directly from the apprentices that are participating in those union trades. Then in the evening, if you can't make the day event, they're having an Outstanding Apprentice Award ceremony, and that's taking place at Rod and Hammer, also in SLO. It kicks off at 5 p.m., and they'll be recognizing outstanding local apprentices and the programs that are making an impact in our region. I've left some flyers in the back if anyone is interested in joining us. And thank you again to the City of Grover Beach for your commitment to advancing workforce development and supporting our programs in this county.
Thank you so much. And if you just hang tight, we'll take a picture in a second, okay? All right, now on to the proclamation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I gave this one to Councilmember McCory Driscoll, please. And really quick, sorry, we do have Krista Stafford Elmore, who's a board member of Lumina Alliance, to accept it.
Okay, great. It is my privilege to present this proclamation of the Grover City Beach City Council declaring October as Dating and Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas Dating and Domestic Violence Awareness Month calls attention to the fact that intimate partner violence is widespread and impacts every person in Grover Beach. And whereas Lumina Alliance provides essential life-saving services for survivors, their children, and families throughout San Luis Obispo County, including Grover Beach. And whereas domestic violence is a pattern of control in an intimate relationship where one person uses coercion and violence to gain power and control over his or her partner. And whereas domestic violence can result in physical injury, psychological trauma, and even death, the devastating consequences of domestic violence can cross generations and last a lifetime. And whereas there is a need to focus on the individualized needs of domestic violence survivors, and whereas there is a need to focus on whereas the marginalized of certain groups in society, including undocumented individuals, transgender individuals, and those living with disabilities, increases their vulnerability to intimate partner violence. And whereas Lumina Alliance continues to provide a safe environment to those affected by domestic violence with crisis prevention, counseling, education, legal services, and emergency safe housing with the help of dedicated volunteers and professionals. And whereas Lumina Alliance has received over 2,000 calls to the Crisis and Information Line, provided more than 6,000 collective nights for shelter clients, and provided more than 4,800 hours of therapy. And whereas Lumina Alliance serves as a bright light during a dark time for survivors of intimate partner violence, illuminating a path towards safety and healing. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Grover Beach City Council, speaking on behalf of the citizens of Grover Beach in recognition of the important work done by Domestic Violence Program, does hereby proclaim October 2025 to be National Dating and Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Thank you so much, Mayor Dee and City Council members, for this proclamation. My name is Krista Elmore, and I'm a board member of Lumina Alliance. And with me is my daughter, Charlotte, a future advocate for Lumina, of course. For over 40 years, Lumina Alliance has been a steadfast source of support for survivors of sexual assault and intimate partner violence. Our mission is to empower those impacted through innovative advocacy, healing, and prevention programs. We provide 24-hour crisis and information line, advocacy and accompaniment, legal referrals, emergency shelters, transitional housing, self-sufficiency services, individual and group therapy, and a comprehensive prevention program. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, or DVAM, a time dedicated to uniting communities in the fight to end domestic violence. First launched in 1987, DVAM has grown into a powerful movement of advocacy, collaboration, and education. More than 40 years later, it remains a vital opportunity to raise awareness about the impacts of domestic violence, both locally and nationwide, while working toward a safer, more just future. This year, we're shining a light on the resilience of survivors and the often overlooked realities of domestic violence in our community. While anyone can experience domestic violence, some groups, including undocumented individuals, transgender people, and those living with disabilities, face unique barriers to safety and support. This October, we reaffirm our commitment to ensuring that every survivor is seen, heard, and empowered. Together, we are illuminating pathways to a future where all survivors have the resources and support they need to heal. Please remember, if you or anyone you know is experiencing sexual or intimate partner violence and needs help, you can call 805-545-8888 to speak to one of our confidential advocates. In closing, we are so grateful for this proclamation and your ongoing support. On behalf of Lumina Alliance's Board of Directors, staff, and volunteers, we thank all of you for taking action this month to create a safe, thriving, and equitable community.
Thank you. All right, and lastly, we have the proclamation for Red Ribbon Week, and I've asked Councilmember Tuggle to read this one, and it'll be accepted by Police Chief Monroe.
Proclamation of the City of Grover Beach declaring the week of October 23rd through October 31st, 2025 as Red Ribbon Week. Whereas tobacco, alcohol, and other drug use and abuse represents a serious public health and safety threat in our city, our county, California, and throughout the United States. And whereas it is important for communities, schools, and individuals throughout the San Luis Obispo County to work together to eliminate the demand for these substances and to promote programs that support commitment to a healthy, drug-free lifestyle. And whereas the Red Ribbon celebration will be observed across the United States during Red Ribbon Week, October 23rd to the 31st, 2025. And whereas parents, youth, government, business, law enforcement, schools, religious institutions, service organizations, social services, health services, media, and the general public will demonstrate their commitment to drug-free communities by wearing and displaying red ribbons during this observance. And whereas Red Ribbon Week highlights local substance abuse prevention programs that involve youth and parents yearly through local community coalitions and numerous countywide organizations, and also recognizes this year's theme, Life is a Puzzle, Solve It Drug-Free. And whereas the City of Grover Beach further commits resources to help the success of Red Ribbon celebration and year-round tobacco, alcohol, and other drug prevention efforts to support healthy, drug-free kids. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of Grover Beach does hereby proclaim October 23rd through October 31st, 2025 as Red Ribbon Week and encourages all citizens to participate in tobacco, alcohol, and other drug prevention activities, making a visible commitment to healthy communities in which to raise a generation of drug-free youth, and encourages all communities to follow the Red Ribbon Pledge. No use of illegal drugs, and no illegal use of legal drugs.
Mayor D. Council, thank you very much for the proclamation. Thank you also for your support each and every year of Red Ribbon Week. I have fond memories of Red Ribbon Week in my childhood. It probably played a large part in the career choice that I made to make a, nice commitment to a healthy, drug-free lifestyle. And I remember the interactions we used to have with our law enforcement, our teachers during that week. We do plan on having interactions at our local Grover Beach school. We've already, in fact, today scheduled over at Grover Beach Elementary, so we'll be out there during Red Ribbon Week. I know. Yeah, exactly. And so we're really looking forward to the last week in October where we can go out there and make those connections and encourage kids and everybody to make good, healthy, and drug-free choices. So once again, thank you for your proclamation. I'll accept it on behalf of the police department, and we'll see you later this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's take photos really quick. Everybody hang tight. We'll be very quick.
Thank you, sir. Good job, baby. All right, thank you to everyone who came out and accepted those proclamations. On behalf of our council, I know that you all do such great work to provide resources to our community, so thank you. Okay, so we do not have any presentations for tonight. I will move on to public communications. Our meetings are designed to proceed in an organized and efficient manner to effectively conduct city business. The council welcomes and values public comments, which can be shared at the designated time from the podium using the microphone. The council requests that all comments be addressed to the council as a whole and that speakers refrain from directing individual comments at staff members. To maintain an orderly process, we kindly ask all attendees to refrain from creating disruptions during the meeting, interrupting speakers who are addressing the council, or impeding the council's ability to conduct business. Should disruptions occur, the council may need to take certain measures such as calling a recess, clearing the chambers, or in rare circumstances, canceling the meeting. We greatly appreciate your understanding and cooperation in maintaining a productive environment that serves our entire community effectively. During this time, the council will allow public communication. Any member of the public may address the council for a period not to exceed 3 minutes total on any item of interest within the jurisdiction of this council. The council will listen to all communications. However, in compliance with the Brown Act, the council cannot act on or discuss items not on the agenda. So I will start with Dr. Jill Stearns, followed by Calvin Kovdek. And again, please no disruptions during the speakers. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor D., council members, and city staff, and those present this evening. I'm Jill Stearns. I live at 849 Castile del Mar in Arroyo Grande. But tonight I am here representing Cuesta College and have some great news, I think, to share with the council. So I'm excited that for the first time since the pandemic, enrollment from the residents of Grover Beach is back above the pre-pandemic level, and it's exciting to see that interest. In particular, this evening, I brought a handout that is the numbers from Arroyo Grande High School, and you can see the impact that having the opportunity to take college and high school credit at the same time is having on the students who are participating. There's a list at the bottom that is the top 10 enrolled courses, but I want you to ignore that because it's not about the collection of courses. It's about the intent of dual enrollment. And that is twofold. One, it is to get a head start on career education. And two, it's transfer preparation. And you can see that 310 students graduated from high school transfer prepared, which means they entered university as a junior. Significant time and cost savings for their opportunity to enter the workforce. So I want to share some specific Grover Beach numbers as well. So of the 937 students at Arroyo Grande High School last year that were enrolled in dual enrollment, 242 were from Grover Beach. And there were a total of 1,050 Cuesta College students from Grover Beach last year. And so we appreciate the participation of Grover Beach residents. We are so glad that they're a part of not only our dual enrollment, but all of the programs that we offer at Cuesta College. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Kelvin Kovduk, followed by Brenda Auer.
Good evening, City Council and people watching on television or on the internet. I'm here tonight to talk about a future 36-unit residential project on Front Street. Currently, there are 23 condos and townhomes being built. It's called Trinity, and it's on the corner of Grand and Highway 1, and it's just starting on Front Street. But I'm not here to talk about Trinity. What I'm here to talk about is the future. In the future, they're planning to build 36 more units along Front Street. Okay, well, that's a residential commercial area, but the land parcels haven't been sold to Central Coast Builders yet. It's still owned by the original owner. And the reason why that's important is what I would like to see happen is the height limit return to the 2022 levels of 25 to 30 feet. That seems very reasonable. The neighborhood is a mixed bag of commercial, single-family homes, and businesses. The 4-story condos and townhomes doesn't fit that neighborhood. This is way different than Grand Avenue. This is where people have families, and there are single-family homes on that street. There's a young couple that just had a baby. It's a different environment. And so what I would like to suggest is I'm asking the City Council to direct their staff for an application to explore the returning of the height limit on the west side of Front Street to 25 to 30 feet. Just a formal request. And why do this? Because it's going to, if this happens, it's going to destroy our neighborhood. And I think that it should stay not exactly the same way, but it should go in a responsible manner. And I think having the 23 units plus the 36, my math says 59 units. That's the same as Encore on Grand Avenue. So you picture Encore on Front Street. It's not it's a different animal altogether. And so that's why I'm here today, is to keep Grover Beach for future generations, Grover Beach, and keeping that neighborhood on the west side at the 22 level height limit. And I think it can be done. I mean, that area has been rezoned in the past. In 2012, it was rezoned. So that's my formal request to the City Council.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Kovduk. All right, we have Ms. Auer, followed by Lauren Westfall.
Thank you, Calvin. I'd like to echo his sentiments, and I'd like to do the same request, please. Good evening, everyone. My friend at home. My name is Brenda Auer. I'm a 26-year resident and an owner of Auer Real Estate in Arroyo Grande and Grover Beach. One nation under God. Did you say that tonight? I am still praying for all of us. Last night we had a miracle rain. To quote a famous band, "Oh, I believe in miracles. I believe in a better world for me and you. I believe in miracles. I believe in a better world for me and you." I make a special request tonight to ask again, not my first time, that you put Pismo's wastewater project on the agenda for community discussion to be televised for those that are at home. Ask for a different location for this project, please. Maybe at the baseball fields there in Pismo. There's lots of other opportunities. Let's explore them. Last night there was a meeting in Grover Beach with Pismo's manager and many community members. None of the council or management from Grover Beach attended. I'm happy to fill you in on the details if you'd like. It was verified that Pismo Beach is bringing their poop water back into Grover Beach. And eventually, sounds like they want to sell it to us. That's exciting. I understand it was close to $1.2 million or more that was paid back to Grover Beach for the property in Grover we gave to Pismo. How much was paid to change the zoning to actually accommodate this project after we bailed out? Because, you know, their zoning was changed for them. Can you tell me where that money is? I request that you provide the information you promised last meeting about the Community Foundation and how much money they've raised for Ramona Park. According to the agenda tonight, maybe, I want to know why it's a big secret. Since we're short on funds, I believe you will agree now that the previous council and current council and management made a bad decision to ignore the sewer upgrades and to begin work on what kind of looks like now the Ramona Money Pit. It's time to start having attic behavior instead of basement behavior, always blaming the other person. I see a couple times in the agenda where you actually blame the community for the council and management's bad decisions. G24 was voted on by the community, all of the people that live here, because no one on council or management would listen. So we had to vote. We had to go and vote and walk the streets and explain to people. Now you're blaming the community? Let's stop the blaming. Take responsibility. Get honest. Make the correct decisions for the community, not for the pocketbook of the consultants and others.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Sauer. Next, we have Lauren Westfall, followed by Charles Varney.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, and staff. I printed it out big enough. Several times I've mentioned the tax measures X06 and F20 by their measures. Has any of you guys actually read these tax measures, their ordinance, looked at the presentation slides, the arguments in favor, even the mail out that was sent out? All this information is available online. It is interesting that the actual ordinance, it speaks to the revenues collected from this tax measure would be used for preventing budget cuts. However, the mailer and the actual tax measure that the people voted on claimed that the revenues were going to be used for micro grants to assist local businesses for the hardship of COVID, which it did. Some businesses got $2,000, some got $5,000. Interesting though, when I started researching this again, I found checks in people's names that did not reflect the name of the business, just their personal names. But the city also received funds from the state for the purpose of the micro grants. Making the city more pedestrian friendly and accessible through sidewalk improvements in addition. There was a program in K14 which was approved if the residents were willing to pay for half the cost of the sidewalks, but that they were told that it's when the streets were going to be scheduled for repairs. Once they called, they said it was no longer offered. Repairing the main streets, West Grand, Oak Park, North 4th, the amount approximately $10 million, which is stated on the flyer. West Grand was not funded with the F20 tax, it was funded with the grant money. Securing additional staff and equipment for fire and emergency services. Most of their funding actually comes from federal and state grants. I would like to know if the F20 tax money is going towards the fire truck, or if that was grant money. Encouraging economic development. This you can interpret it any way, and I'm not going to get to that. This tax measure alone is estimated in 2020 to increase the city's revenue by 1.8 million annually to date. That would be 7.2 million. The only reason I bring this up is because out of this flyer, the only thing it said that it paid for is for additional sworn police officers. Later on tonight, we're going to be talking about their facilities. What the mailer did not include was all the written ordinances that talked about additional staff. I would like to know how many additional staff assistants, new positions were created and have been hired. And as far as the 2 vacant engineer positions, the city could save over $4 million annually by eliminating those positions and just continuing with the contractor services.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Westfall. Charles Varney, followed by Ron Arnoldson.
Good evening, council and staff and members of the public. Grover Beach, Arroyo Grande, and Oceano have a historic opportunity to work together to create water security for our communities. In May of 2017, the Coastal Commission mandated that South County Sanitation District begin planning for possible relocation of the Oceano facility due to legitimate concerns that it could be compromised by climate change-induced sea level rise and creek flooding. As you know, our 3 communities are set as the board of directors of the sanitation district, so we have a huge responsibility and opportunity. The Coastal Commission required that the sanitation district complete studies on relocating and finding the land to relocate the new treatment plant on, as well as its cost, a detailed life expectancy of the current plant, detailed hazard response plans, and cost estimates to build a new treatment plant with full-scale tertiary water treatment for all municipal wastewater in the South County that goes through the sanitation district. That is millions of gallons every day of new water for our communities, for municipal use, residential use, and groundwater recharge. They required that they estimated the cost to demolish the existing plant and restore the property to a natural state. The first 10-year progress report is due in 19 months. Most of the above required information has been created and shared with the Coastal Commission, although costs for climate change data, although the costs and climate change data need to be updated. The Coastal Commission has provided a huge gift to South County in laying out a blueprint for creating local water security that would create millions of gallons of new water. Water insecurity is perhaps the most acute environmental issue we face in our communities, and this legacy project will protect us and our great-great-grandchildren. This is something positive that we can do. We can all work together for a better now and a better future. The existing treatment plant is old and vulnerable. The life expectancy study done said it would need more than $100 million in maintenance and repairs over the next 22 years. Why put that into an old car? Let's buy a new one. In replacement, its replacement is inevitable, and the sooner we start, the better. This project will take at least 15 years to complete, which means it needs to start by 2030. We don't have a choice around this.
Thank you, Mr. Varney. Thank you for your comments. Thank you. Ron Arnoldson, followed by James, is it Prong or Prange? Prang. Got it. Thank you.
Good evening. I have a hard time coming here because I usually don't have anything positive to say. Tonight, it's going to be all positive. I'm going to brag about our city employees. First department I'm going to brag about is the police department. Sheriff Monroe and his crew were at the Tippecop last week. Didn't see any of you people there, but there were several of us from Grover that showed up. They did a great job. They really outlined what a good department we have and what good people have in Grover Beach. The next department I'm going to brag about is Public Works. Those guys are heroes. They're as much heroes as a fire department or the police department. If the shit don't flow and the water don't flow, we're in trouble. Those guys make it work. They are the hardest working guys we've ever had have been from Public Works since I was on council and before. There was a water break on North 8th the other week, about a week ago. They were there. They detected where the break was. They localized it, fixed it, and were gentlemen doing it and let the community know what was going on. Well, you guys got to give them more respect when you see them. They are great guys, thanks to our public works guys.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Arnoldson. Next, we have James Prang.
Yeah, hello. James Prang. I live at 829 Calvin Court in Grover Beach. First off, I want to say I was at the meeting last night where Pismo came and gave us information about the wastewater plant. I want to say definitely opposed to that and would like to know if Grover Beach still needs to give Pismo Beach any approvals so that that plant goes forward, because obviously Pismo doesn't care about residents living next to the plant, but maybe you guys as the city council of Grover Beach would stick up for the residents that live there, the majority of who I believe are definitely opposed to having this thing stuck in our backyard, or in my case, right next door to me. So wanted to get that out there. Related to that is, I'm no expert, don't even really like coming to this, but I would like to know how I would find out if Calvin Court is a private or public street. I didn't even know there was a difference, but apparently there is. So far, it appears it must be a private street, because in the 8 years I've lived there, I've not seen one piece of work done to maintain it, improve it, or do anything to it. And if there's a worse street in Grover Beach, I would like you to tell me where it is so I can go see it. It is despicable. It's terrible. But also like to know what the plan is for Huber Street. I guess I'm pronouncing that right. I'm hearing it's to be extended to Calvin Court, either as part of this project or maybe on its own. If that's the case, it looks like it would go through my property, so I would definitely like to know what's going on with that. And then, separate issue, I've called and spoken many times to Public Works about the debris that comes down from Highland, flows down Griffin, makes a turn, flows down Calvin Court, and the mud, the debris, riffraff, all deposits in front of my house, because it seems the road's not graded properly, because it doesn't flow all the way to 4th Street. It just pools there in front of my place. So I was told that that was going to be, something was going to be done. It was in the budget. They said a couple of weeks ago that it was going to be soon. Obviously, nothing's happened. Every time it rains, it gets worse. That's pretty much it for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prang. All right, I do not have any other speaker slips. Would anybody wish to come up during general public comment and speak? Seeing nobody move forward, is there anybody on the line?
Getting her in there. It's Donna De La Rosa.
This is Donna De La Rosa, and I'm just calling to once again request a discussion of the Pismo wastewater project to be placed on the agenda. We can continue to comment at council meetings, but if you are unable to provide feedback or participate in the discussion, it's fruitless. Some of us did meet with the Pismo Beach city manager yesterday, which he didn't have to do, but after meeting with him, we have even more questions that are more appropriate directed to Grover Beach. So we want your input, and the only way to get that is for you to add the topic to the agenda. So once again, I ask, and that's it for now.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. De La Rosa. Is there anybody else on the line? All right, so then I will now close public comment, and we will now move on to the consent agenda. These are items number 5, minutes of the City Council meeting on Monday, September 22nd, 2025. Number 6, the fiscal year 24 to 25 year-end financial review. Number 7, the master fee schedule amendment for Public Works building plan review fees. Number 8, Ramona Garden Park Rehabilitation Project Design Services contract amendment. Number 9, introduction and first reading of an ordinance to amend Grover Beach, the municipal code, noticing requirements for camping, recreation, homelessness, and use of public rights. Excuse me, please stop talking. Excuse me in the back. Thank you. Noticing requirements for camping, recreation, homelessness, and use of public rights of way, or city property for camping. So I will now open for public comments on the consent agenda. I have a couple of speaker slips. We have Brenda Auer, followed by Lauren Westfall.
I've already heard Lauren's comments, and I agree with whatever she's going to say. First of all, I want to just address item 6, water and waste and water fund. Why does the report continue to blame the citizens of Grover Beach? Again, take responsibility. Please, begin today. Support the community. Put those items on the agenda that have been asked over and over again. We desire your help. Please. Do the right thing and just start listening and stop blaming. Take responsibility, okay? Item number 7. In fact, item 6 really should be pulled from the agenda, I think. Again, I agree. Item number 7. Really, now you're going to raise fees without justification or discussion. Why? Shouldn't this be pulled from the agenda? Are we just too busy doing other things? This is important. Those fees that are being raised are huge. Have you looked at them? Huge. Shouldn't we talk about it? Shouldn't we say why? What, I know costs are going up, but this county cut back $38 million. Grover Beach hasn't cut back anything. In fact, they've hired assistants. They've hired new employees. There's no cutback here, but they're spending our money. Those of you that live here, think about it. Grover Beach needs to take a look. There's a lot of ways to save money, and to gouge the community without even a discussion. If you vote that through tonight, shame on you. Yep, that's it. Other than on the financials, I'd really like to know what was actually spent on Central Coast Blue while we were participating. How much did we get back for the land? I would like to see a full accounting. Please just provide it. And when you're dealing with the employee credit cards, why can't I see what you all are spending money on? My accountant wants to know. She calls me. What was this? Well, and then I tell her. She tells me if it's a write-off or not. I'd like to see your credit card expenses. Can we just put that on the reports? Why not? What do you got to hide? And the thing is, if you're not transparent and talk with us and listen to us and make us go back and do the recall like we did last year, because no one was listening. Well, if you stop doing that and actually work with us as a team, support us. We're being gouged here in Grover Beach, and if you council members don't know it, you need to take a look at the budget. San Luis Obispo cut back $38 million. Grover Beach hired new people. Everybody has an assistant. It's not needed. Those assistants can't even do their jobs, and they have to hire consultants. Have you noticed that? Take a look. How much we spend for consultants.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Auer. Lauren Westfall.
Good evening again. I have to say, you guys are really making my speeches. Item 6, 7, and 8 need to be pulled from the agenda. Consent agenda is meant for routine, non-controversial items that do not require discussion. These items do require discussion. The year-end financial review is a significant report that reflects the city's fiscal health, budget performance, and possible audit findings. Past year, it's always been listed under the regular business. This report warrants council and staff discussion, questions, and formal acceptance, not just a blanket approval without deliberation. Past reports include a breakdown of the expenditure, operating expenditure, debit services, transfers, outs, and others. Shouldn't this report, I will skip that because that was already addressed. The report mentioned a reimbursement from Pismo Beach, but doesn't indicate the exact amount. How much did Pismo reimburse Grover for the property? And where is that money? Can it be used for the new police department? Under the wastewater fund, it does not reflect the revenues that South County Sanitation pays Grover Beach for their billing. How much does the South County pay Grover Beach? Council recently increased the sewer rates to provide sufficient revenues of wastewater services capital projects, including the debt services. Please clarify what debt services is. Staff intentionally overestimate revenues and underestimate expenditures. How are we to believe that the city actual operating cost is what is reported, when there has been many oversights, corrections required since 2023? How are we to know if the city is not influencing the auditor? The city claims that they pass every audit, yet auditors never caught the outstanding wastewater loans, never caught that the city was billing higher rates before the effective dates. In order for us to truly build trust and transparency, I believe the city should have another third-party auditor to conduct a thorough audit of the city's entire books, an auditor that has no financial interest in the San Luis Obispo County, one that cannot be influenced. I bet either this auditor will find out that the city is wealthier than what they are reporting, or truly bankrupt and due to financial mismanagement and lack of accountability. I have realized that people may hate me because I actually speak the truth. I research my information before I even come out. I've looked at your guys' reports over and over, and none of the numbers match. I cannot see one report and look at the next year and find a matching number. So you guys need to find somebody to really audit your guys' books, because I cannot figure it out.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Westfall. I do not have any other speaker slips. Does anybody else wish to come up and speak? Seeing nobody come forward, is there anybody on the line? All right, I will now close the public comments for the consent agenda. Council members, do you have any questions, comments, want to pull any items? If not, may I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented?
I do have a question. Sorry, I didn't move fast enough. I just wanted a point of clarification on number 6. It's a two-part question, and I hope this doesn't go too far. First, is this something that is required, or is this something we do extra in addition to the required reporting, financial reporting?
Thank you and good evening, Mayor and Council members. This item is an annual item that we do as a discretionary item. What is required is the audit that brings forward information done by a third-party auditor hired by the council, not by staff. And that is brought forward every January. It's called the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. And the auditors have a code of ethics and oath of integrity around the outside objectivity of that process. That is required. This item is something we do for transparency every year to provide a high-level snapshot of our 3 largest funds, the general fund, the water fund, wastewater fund, to give you a sense of the unaudited actuals prior to the official documentation coming forward in January.
Okay, so we should expect a higher level or a deeper level of analysis on that audit.
That's correct.
Any other questions? All right.
Sure. No, still questions. Sorry. Also, I do recognize on number 7 it is a big increase. Can we get an answer to the why behind the what, or is that too much?
The why behind the what is that we want to make sure development pays its fair share. That's a mantra that we hear and a mantra that we believe, and the current fee structure does not guarantee that. The general fund is subsidizing those who are submitting permits because we have not reviewed these fees in quite some time because of the uptick in development activity across the city, not just in West Grand Avenue, but on people's single-family homes. The costs are not paying for, the fees are not paying for the cost of that service. And so the general fund taxpayers are paying for the cost of those who are requesting permits. This is similar to any other fee we have to make sure we're recouping the cost of providing the service for those who are using the service.
So no profits being made by the increase. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Or do we need to pull an item?
Well, how far do we have to go before we pull it?
Go ahead and ask your question.
Question is, on the number 7, our master fee schedule, when was the last time we had a fee increase?
For the public works fees, it's been many years.
many years. So are we competitive? I don't know if that's the correct word. Are we comparable to other cities at this point? And are we raising up to the level we're comparable to other cities' fee schedules?
I don't have that information in front of me, but we're recouping the cost of providing the service for both our contract and in-house staff.
Okay. And they're quite low at this time, right? Okay, thank you.
All right. All done with questions? Yes? Okay. We would have to pull something. Do you want to pull the item? I feel like.
Just a quick question on the item that hasn't been talked about yet.
Okay, then that's a lot.
So for item number 8, it does note that on the third paragraph that in addition there were significant changes in electric utility connections from PG&E affecting the park that required redesign work. Can you explain what that is?
I'll do it briefly before the city attorney looks at me.
I'm watching her.
The original design had the undergrounding, had the utilities be undergrounded, and that's what we worked with the design. There were some changes from PG&E. They came to us and said we would need additional funding to help do that. We did not have the funding for it, so we had to go back and redesign parts of that project in order to account for that utility connection. So that was required. We didn't have a choice in doing the redesign, and this contract helps to true that up.
Good. All right. So if there are no other questions, can I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented?
Sure. I'll move to adopt the consent agenda.
May I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Tuggle.
Yes.
Councilmember Wyrick.
Yes.
Councilmember McQuarrie Driscoll.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Robert.
Yes.
Mayor D.
Yes. Thank you. Now moving on to our public hearing. And this is going to be a public hearing, and I'm just going to send it right over to Community Development Director Martin for the PowerPoint presentation and to say the long title.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I'd first like to start by introducing our building official, Mr. Mark Sadowski. He is a contracted building official with JAS Pacific. JAS provides us with all of our building and fire inspection services. He'll be available to you this evening for any and all of your technical questions related to our item. So the item before you this evening is the 2025 California Building Standards Code update. What this entails is every 3 years, the state requires cities and counties to update local building codes consistent with the California Building Standards Code. This code's responsible for the regulations for construction, alteration, and maintenance of all types of buildings, for example, residential, commercial, schools, and hospitals. When someone mentions the building code, it's actually made up of multiple parts that govern the design, construction, accessibility, energy, and fire and life and safety, and those are in front of you on the screen. So each one is, there's 13 parts in total. Each one is related to those different components that govern the things that I listed. So we have the administrative code, the building code, residential code, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, energy, green building, fire code, historical code, and new Part 7, the California Wildland Urban Interface Code. So how does code adoption process work? Why are we before you this evening? A number of state agencies and stakeholders review current regulations and new legislation over the 3-year cycle. So those state agencies are including but not limited to the State Department of Housing and Community Development, the California Building Standards Commission, the California Energy Commission, Department of State Architects, as well as the Office of State Fire Marshal. So all of those agencies combined take a look at what the regulations have provided to local agencies over the 3 years, looked at best practices as well as room for improvement, and make suggestions. And the California Building Standards Commission publishes that new code in the preceding calendar year in July of 2025. The Standards Commission then publishes a toolkit around September, and this is a toolkit for local agencies to use to ensure compliance with new regulations and practitioners to understand the impacts that these changes in the regulations and standards will have on the different local agencies. The local adoption of the code is done by a city council, or if you're at the county board of supervisors, and it's to occur no later than December, as the mandatory all changes go into mandatory effect in January of that following year, following that July code publication. So there were a number of changes this code cycle, but all as it relates to the city were minor in nature. So I'm just going to go through a few of those key state code changes. And again, this minor in nature as it relates to this city. It's going to be different for City of San Luis Obispo, City of Atascadero, City of Paso Robles, especially as it relates to this first new Part 7, which is the Wildland Urban Interface, or what's known as the WUI. Current California Building Standards codes has wildland urban fire risk regulations kind of scattered throughout. And so for the first time, the Standards Commission put all of those wildland urban fire risk regulations into one new part, and all associated building standards and regulations associated with, for example, home hardening, if you're in a very high fire hazard zone, are now all within this part. There's also a high-rise classification. So building code defines a high-rise as 75 feet or taller. The changes will also provide that occupied roofs now count towards that 75-foot high-rise threshold. There's a new two-way communication system that'll be required in stairways with locking stair-side doors, elevator lobbies, and horizontal exits. So again, just safety and accessibility to exit in the event of an emergency. There's also enhanced accessibility for multifamily developments in Chapter 11 and 11A and 11B. Additional key state code changes include several structural and fire safety safety enhancements, and there are also some increased energy efficiency requirements regarding heat pumps, windows, and ventilation standards within the energy and green building, or CalGreen standards. So as with most code updates, there are other legislative actions that may influence a local agency's ability to make local amendments to their codes. And so Assembly Bill 130, commonly referred to as AB 130, it was signed and effected June 30th of 2025. It specifically prohibited any local amendments to residential codes through 2031. This is in response to the state's mandates to prioritize pro-housing policies and housing development in different jurisdictions. So unless for wildfire safety, emergency standards, and any REACH codes or local amendments that were adopted prior to September 30th, 2025, we are unable to, as a local agency, make any new local amendments to our residential code. And irrespective of this Assembly bill, I just also wanted to mention there are required findings and evidence that you have to submit when any local amendments are made to your building code. And those findings have to be related to unique geographic, climactic, and topographical features of the city. Those findings have been included in your staff report in the resolution as attachment 2. So with those key changes and the legislative update AB 130 in mind, staff's proposing a number of updates, but the changes are relatively minor, as I mentioned, and do not have a substantial impact on construction or building within the city. As you may remember, at the last City Council meeting, your council voted to modify our municipal code numbering systems and the referencing system. So all numbers that I'm quoting moving forward from this slide on are in regards to the new code numbers. The first updates are the Grover Beach Municipal Code new numbering system, Title 15, Chapter 150, Building Regulations. Your council must adopt by reference the 2025 California Building Standards Codes with local amendments. Again, California Building Standards Codes is all of those codes that are listed, all those parts that are listed on your screen. So those all have to be adopted by reference, and they are in effect and mandatory January 1, 2026. We also have adopted by reference, and it's recommended to your council again that we do the 2024 International Property Maintenance Code with local amendments. The International Property Maintenance Code provides our city with additional enforcement authority over code compliance and code enforcement matters. Additional local amendments, general updates, we better defined and established the authority, the duties, and appointment of the building official under the Community Development Director. We clarified permit expiration dates for permits issued to correct code violations to support our code enforcement strategies. Our property maintenance amendments were really just simple clarifying maintenance standards and enforcement provisions for improved code compliance, as well as minor administrative revisions. There were no substantive changes, just minor technical and administrative amendments. Our building and residential codes We provided additional language to expand the fire sprinkler requirements for consistency with city amendments and state standards. We also clarified the thresholds and timelines for when sprinklers are required. So I've always been a very big proponent of being prescriptive, not subjective. And if you were to read our existing building code, it doesn't provide a square footage threshold. It just says for any and all additions and alterations, fire sprinklers may be required. However, in policy, we were applying a specific threshold in accordance with what our Five Cities Fire Authority and our building official had suggested. And so we took that prescriptive measurement and applied it to the code. We also updated definitions and administrative provisions for clarity and alignment with state codes. Lastly, our fire code. We officially are designating Five Cities Fire Authority as our fire code enforcement agency and clarifying language for their efforts for enforcement of those regulations and allowing for them to recoup costs as it relates to that enforcement. We also added clarifying language. Again, on policy, we were implementing these things, but it wasn't codified. So we're clarifying language for fire lane standards, hydrant types, cost recovery, as I mentioned, and emergency access. As with any action taken by the city, the project was evaluated under the California Environmental Quality Act. Staffs found that the administrative action before your council is not a project under CEQA and is therefore exempt from any further environmental review. With that, staff has several recommendations to your council. The first being that we conduct the first reading and introduce the ordinance to amend the Grover Beach Municipal Code Title 15, Chapter 150 Building Regulations, to adopt the building standards codes with local amendments, as well as the 2024 International Property Maintenance Code with local amendments. Also to consider the resolution setting forth the findings and evidence required by the California Health and Safety Code to support those local amendments. And lastly, schedule the second reading to adopt the ordinance and resolution at the next regularly scheduled public hearing. With that, I'm available for any questions you may have. And as I mentioned, Mr. Mark Sadowski is also available in our audience, our building official, to answer any technical questions you may have.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so we will start with questions from our council. Did anybody want to start? Can I start to my left?
I'll just ask it because it's come up a lot. Does anything in any of the state recommendations or requirements apply to heights of our buildings?
Not as it would impact the city of Grover Beach. So
Okay.
no changes in this update and our local amendments would affect anything relating to heights within our zoning code.
Okay, thank you. That's my only question.
Okay.
Councilmember Wyrick?
Yeah. Let's see. On the one slide, you noted enhanced accessibility for the multifamily side of things. There's a few back. Up there it is at the bottom there. Could you go to further explanation of what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd invite Mr. Sadowski to the podium to provide again, his technical expertise as to what those changes entail.
Welcome, Mr. Sadowski.
Good evening.
You're good to go.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on. You.
Just not green here.
No. You just start talking. Yeah, you're good.
Perfect. All right.
Yeah, we don't have the
Good,
timer
good.
for you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. So in terms of, a detailed breakdown of what the changes are for chapters 11A and 11B, I'd have to, do some research and kind of provide a more in-depth summary for you. The changes haven't been really discussed in great detail, so I don't anticipate there's going to be a lot in terms of multifamily impacts. But it's just kind of minor things that they discover every 3-year code cycle. So if it would be acceptable to the council, I could put together a summary to share with Director Martin, and then from there advise the council kind of a more in-depth description of what those changes might be.
I'm always interested in that, so thank you for that offer. And then when it comes to and this was done in previous meeting too, as far as the preemption of doing reach codes for different areas outside of the 3 parts that you noted. But the California Building Code, so it's now preempts us from going above and beyond the building code outside those 3 areas that would have to be justified through topographical, et cetera. But it doesn't prevent us from doing other kind of incentivizing programs or other different things since they wouldn't be mandated. Is that an accurate way of how that works?
So you're asking if the AB 130 provisions would prohibit local agencies from doing additional
engagement, maybe not mandating, because the preemption side prevents mandating, but as far as it doesn't prevent us from being able to engage within those other areas that we're now prohibited until 2031 for when it comes to conversations within development. Is that correct?
Yes, I think, and again, I'm just going to ask one clarifying question. So what you're saying is if we were to introduce different measures that were voluntary for commercial, mixed use, or residential to pursue, would that type of local amendment be allowed? I don't know the answer to that, but again, my understanding of the AB 130 legislation is that any local amendments at all, whether voluntary or mandatory, are prohibited through 2031. But unless you understand that differently.
My understanding is that if it's mandatory or additional cost or impacts to a development for residential units. I can confirm in more detail, but I don't believe that there's any prohibition on providing incentives or additional options for people, but it cannot be a restriction or a penalty for that development.
Gotcha.
And anything that we would propose can always be submitted to the State Buildings Commission for consideration. And if they kick it back and say, no, this is in violation of XYZ, we could then report back to the council on that decision, that determination.
Okay. That's always interesting mine now. And and one thing too, just to clarify too, since not everyone understands your role in particular, because when it did note that having that the building official could be under the community development director, that aspect of it too. So for kind of legal purposes too, what's the role of the building official, within the context of everything too, since that's, like I said, your role doesn't come up too often around here too, so it's just good to explain publicly.
Of course.
Very briefly.
Of course. In general, it's working with the agency and the city to apply and enforce, interpret the building standards codes for projects and development throughout the city, for both existing and new construction, property maintenance standards. If somebody has a substandard building, addressing that. So kind of being the final technical interpretation and decision authority for building standards codes.
Thank you.
That was brief. Thank you. Good. Okay. Questions to my right?
Just a point of clarification and a question. So I understand what AB 130 is. I'm wondering, clarifying why then can we have the 2025 with local amendments if AB 130 says we can't do that?
Great question. Those local amendments are clarifications, corrections, and definitions that are a part of code changes and local amendments we've made prior to September 30th. So a lot of those amendments had already been adopted by your council or previous councils. Changes can still be made to those, just new mandatory restrictions on development, as Mr. Sadowski implied, cannot be made.
Okay. And then this may be a better question for the fire chief, but in the decision to move fire code enforcement into Five Cities Fire Authority, will that be done by fire inspectors in the Five Cities Authority, or do you have that? I'm excited about the concept. I just would love to hear a little bit more. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Invite Chief to come up and mention, but through our contract currently with the city, we do have a fire marshal and fire inspection staff that are performing the requested inspections as they come up.
Yeah, so that's why I'm curious how that, does that mean that you'll be doing that now, or how does that look? How does that work out in reality?
So under the, good evening, by the way.
Hello.
Good evening.
Under our current agreement between the City of Grover Beach and Five Cities Fire Authority, we're delegating different responsibilities for fire code compliance, whether it be fire plan checks, which is typically delegated to JAS currently under their contract with the city, and then some of the state mandated inspections such as SB 1205 and our SD 850 inspections are being conducted by the fire authority. So right now it's kind of dual responsibility. So I think one of the things that this codifies is that it can be a delegated official under community development or the fire authority.
So it's more codifying than changing current practice. Okay, that's what, I guess that would have been a quicker way to ask that question. Thank you so much. That's it.
Any other questions? Go ahead. No questions from you? Okay, and my questions were asked, so I will now open the public hearing, and I do not have any speaker slips. Does anybody wish to come up and speak? Okay.
I know I'm as smart as all you, but it sure sounded like gibberish to me. I really think my question would have been, what are the actual changes that are going to affect us? What are the actual changes that are going to affect us? And Clint, I don't know how this can go on to the consent agenda next meeting without your questions being answered. So thank you for asking them. But this is almost as ridiculous as changing a fee from $96 to $400 without an actual discussion. So do you understand what was just talked about? I hope so.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Auer. Anybody else wish to come up and speak? Seeing nobody come forward, is there anybody on the line? No? Okay, I will now close the public hearing and bring it back to the council for deliberation. I believe what you presented and then in our staff report was, it was presented, we did see the changes that were being made in the staff presentation, but is there anything else you would like to touch base on again, or maybe go back to the slide so our people can see it?
Yeah, so the slides that were presented this evening are summary of the changes that were made. If any individual, the public, is interested in the specific changes, they can go to the staff report online, review the document, and look at the ordinance. Our entire building code with those local amendments are listed as attachment 1 as part of your report.
I remember reading that,
detail.
yes. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, perfect. All right, so let's bring it back to the council for deliberation. Does anybody want to start our conversation at all? Go ahead.
Yeah, on the aspect of the voluntary nature, and I would like to have us direct that, at least that in the next staff report on the iteration of this, that it does talk about that part in particular, because that part is clear that we can't, that we're preempted from mandating, but as far as that dynamic, since it was connected with this conversation.
Okay. Was that clear?
I need additional direction.
Okay.
So if I understand the direction, you'd like staff to reference this in the staff report for the second reading coming forward on October 27th?
Well, I mean, since we have both our community services director and our building official and stuff too, who could look into further for clarification on the AB 130, how those dynamics play into if we want to do the voluntary side versus the mandatory side, since that part wasn't quite clear from this meeting, how that could come into play too, because the local amendments can't mandate new things. That was clear. But if we do different voluntary programs, incentives, other different ways as a city, does that fall within that preemption or doesn't it? So that's where we'd put basically some research that they could find out from that too, because like I said, it's connected to this because of the preemption, but at the same time, it wasn't clear what we can or can't do.
So I think just from a staff standpoint, we'll look to the council for concurrence on that. It sounds like it'd be more of a research initiative than just listing in a staff report, and that's something that we would look at and work on with our workload priorities, given that we are down some positions right now. We have to figure out when best to bring that back to the council at a later date.
And I bring it up because it could initiate future council agenda items, so it might be important to address now. While we have two people and stuff who are already concentrating on this kind of work.
Okay.
We could provide what we could within 2 weeks, but then probably there's more after that. That would be a longer term item.
And that's understood too, but at least answer the base question too, because if the base question says even the voluntary things are preempted, then that answers that.
Okay. Do you need further concurrence from the council for that direction?
As part of your deliberation, yes.
Okay. So as of right now, any other questions or comments or? Okay. So it looks like we are so far. Sorry, there's just a lot going on. There's a lot going on right there. So what we're doing right now is deliberating on the staff recommendation, including what Councilmember Wyrick, the voluntary, just recommended. Okay. Good.
Yeah, the voluntary on the reach codes aspect that was noted earlier.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, perfect. Ms. McCrory-Driscoll?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't want it to hold us up from moving forward because we're going to, my real takeaway is the state really is taking away a lot of local control.
Yeah.
So, that's just the general, I'm not saying that these changes are that massive other than AB 130, but the general tide is really moving in that direction. But it is on a timeline, and I don't want to put our staff in a position of operating under the gun at the last minute.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem? You concur? Okay. All right. I think that we are really under the state's hold on this item. So I think they're trying to set regulations to protect our city and the buildings in them. So we can't really do much other than that. But yeah, that was it for my comments. Any other comments? All right. So then I would like to see a motion that, and you can just move to recommend staff's recommendation with with Councilmember Wyrick's direction on the REACH codes. Is that correct? Okay. Well, okay, I'll make that motion. Then I guess I'll make that motion. So I'll move to. I know.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. May I have a roll call, please?
Mayor D?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Robert?
Yes.
Councilmember McCory Driscoll?
Yes.
Councilmember Tuggle?
Yes.
Councilmember Wyrick?
Yes.
All right, thank you so much. That passes. Okay. Thank you for the presentation and thank you for your time being here. Do we want to take a short 10-minute break before we move on to our next item? 5 minutes? We can do this in 5 minutes? Okay. We'll take a quick 5-minute break and then we will be back. Thank you. Okay, ready? All right, welcome back. Thank you. We are now going to go on to item 11, the City Facilities Needs Update, and we're going to call on Assistant City Manager Erickson and CIP Manager Wiggin for the PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you, Mayor D. I'll go ahead and get started. The city owns and operates numerous public facilities, including City Hall, the EOC, which is the Emergency Operations Center, the room that we are in right now, which is also our council chambers, the police station, the community center over at 12th and Trouville, the Ramona Garden Park Center, the Public Works Corporation yard, and the fire station right over here. We own the building there. Several of these buildings are over 60 years old, and the newest is 25 years old. So the newest being the building we are in right now, and then the oldest, one of the oldest, I should say, is the City Hall, especially the area by the employee entrance down the hall there. So our maintenance needs have significantly increased over the years. And really, to be honest, the facilities have not really been systematically maintained. They just have been repaired on an as-needed basis. So our unanticipated maintenance needs have really taxed our resources. Last year, our costs for unplanned repairs exceeded $100,000. And then some repairs, you might remember a couple weeks ago, the HVAC here in council chambers, that had to be deferred or delayed, I should say, just to make sure we didn't exceed our maintenance budget last year. So that is in the works now. These repairs are not just costly, but they are very disruptive, and they can impact staff and the city's ability to effectively serve the public. So our intent for this item tonight is to brief you on our city's facilities conditions and present the findings and revisit the findings of the facilities conditions and needs assessment that was done 2 years ago, and then get input and direction on the next steps to create a plan to improve our facilities. We'll start with the police department, and we'll go through the operation needs and our recent work there. So that building, that section behind us, is over 40 years old, and it just no longer meets the needs of our police department. We've had, I'll call it minor remodels, or what really like repurposing different rooms. And so that work really wasn't enhancing the building itself, but just repurposing rooms for different uses. And then again, maintenance has been limited to just fixing items when they break. The age of the building at this point, there's a lot of needs, structural needs, plumbing needs, HVAC and electrical needs. There also is a lack of space for staff and storage and rooms for training and victim interview rooms. There are staff working in converted storage closets, and then there's an off-site storage facility that we're renting to store police vehicles, technology, and other equipment at a cost of over $110,000 annually. This is a photo of the sewer line break last fiscal year, which was quite costly, but also very disruptive for staff. So again, it's not just the costs, it's the resources when we have significant breaks like this. We do have a planned remodel for the restroom to address damage and the age over there at one of the restrooms. On the right is the closet that I just mentioned, which is now an office. And then the center just shows it's kind of a good picture showing some remodels that budget was very limited, so it impacted other areas, not really intentionally. So I'm able to walk down on the left side of the stairs, but Chief Monroe cannot do that. Moving on to the Public Works Corporation yard, it is really, really small for efficient operations, and it does require a lot of repairs. The buildings over there were moved to that current location, I think in 1983, and I believe they were 20 or 30 years old at that time when they were moved. The mechanic shop is scheduled to be demolished later this year, and then the shop will be moved to another bay. There haven't been that many improvements, but our recent improvements include paving, adding a temporary office building or office trailer, and reorganizing several of the bays. We do have vehicles and equipment that are stored outdoors, and we have covered parking, but I don't know if you could see like the bottom left photos or some of the photos. It's covered on the top, but it's still not enclosed, so those vehicles are still exposed to the elements there. And this just shows some of the age of the facilities and the how crowded it is. It's hard to turn around vehicles and even park all of the vehicles at that space. And then here in City, well, not here, not in the council chambers, but City Hall is over 60 years old. There's a backlog of deferred maintenance, and there's been unexpected stopgap repairs. But really, the facility no longer meets the space needs, and we have staff, City Hall staff working in 3 different buildings. So it just diminishes collaboration and does impact our ability to effectively serve the public with staff not being housed in one building. So council awarded an agreement to RNT Architects to develop the facilities conditions and needs assessment. So this included an in-depth investigation and non-invasive testing of the facilities. And I have research here internally and externally. And what I mean by that is, again, meeting with staff, interviewing directors, assessing the buildings, but also researching other cities' facilities and comparing that with other places in the county. And the intent was to determine how well our existing facilities can meet our current and future needs of our organization. And I do want to point out that this FCNA did not include the Public Works Corporation yard because that was already determined to be at the end of its useful life. And it didn't include the fire station because the 5 Cities Fire Authority was already conducting their own needs assessment. So with that, the consultant identified over $6 million in deferred maintenance needs. And some of these findings, so the EOC and the Ramona Garden Park Center are actually in pretty good condition, but there's just no expansion potential for either of those buildings. And then the police department does need a lot of repairs, but the structural integrity is actually in good condition over there, and it could be repurposed for another facility. City Hall does require a lot of repairs, and there is no expansion or reuse potential. And then the community center over at Trouville is at the end of its design life. The other part of their scope was a needs assessment to determine how our facilities can address the future needs. And it is really important to adequately size buildings to meet the future needs without drastically oversizing buildings, because the larger the building, the more maintenance costs you'll have. Part of the scope did only consider city property for potential options. So the options I'll present here are limited because of that. So I want to go through and highlight these options, and I have costs associated with them. I think the costs are a little bit low, and they are now at least 2 years old, so keep that in mind here. But option 1 is a partial reuse, and so the intent here, the option is to renovate the existing police department to be used as the City Hall facility, demo the current City Hall, and then construct a new police department at that site. It would be multi-story. But this doesn't address the parking or the storage needs that the police department has. And then it also requires that the EOC be relocated or used at the Ramona Garden Park Center. So, but there are some concerns with that. And then the sizing of the facilities is limited with that option. The second option is to reconstruct the facilities at the same site. And what I mean by that is the same area here, not necessarily the same footprint. So again, this is using the Ramona Garden Park Center as the EOC, and then it would reconstruct the police department and City Hall closer to the street. And we would still be required to procure off-site storage for the police department, and the sizing of the facilities would also be limited with this option. The third option was the option that council seemed to prefer, and I say seemed because there wasn't really a strong consensus for any of the options, but 3 was the one that they seemed to prefer. And this was reconstructing the facilities at the same site, again, not the same footprint, and have the EOC here as well, but this would include a parking garage below grade. And all three of these, you'll see a bullet that says maintain the Grover Beach Community Center. So that just means leave the community center as is. It's not included in any of the cost estimates. The sizing of the facilities is better here for option 3, but it is still a little bit limited. And then option 4 is to demolish the community center and reconstruct a new police department facility over there, and then consider acquiring some property to help with the vehicle storage over there for the police department, and then reconstruct the city hall facilities at this site. Option 4 is obviously the most expensive option, and that would also require eliminating the community center. And then I will turn it over to our Assistant City Manager for the remainder.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Wiggin. Good evening, Council. So what we want to do tonight is just to bring this back to your consciousness. It's been a couple of years since we've had this discussion, and we wanted to get this council's take on the options as they were presented. And again, as Ms. Wiggin mentioned, these are limited to our current footprint for city facilities right now, because we didn't have any other property options at the time. That was not considered as part of this FCNA. I would say that staff were about as enthusiastic about these options as the prior council was. They all have some pretty significant limitations to them. The police department feels that basically none of them provide exactly what they need as far as space goes to have parking and storage at the same site, which means we don't continue to need to lease external storage facilities. And there would not be enough secure parking in any of those scenarios. Also, the police department is concerned with the options in which the EOC is separated from their facility, just from an operational perspective in an emergency. That's not ideal. So we did want to just check in with your council, however, given that these were the options studied by the consultant, as to whether there is a preference for any of these options that remains, and then also whether your council would want to consider potentially looking at whether the community center could no longer be a community center, but could be instead used for an alternative purpose, most likely a police department facility location. And then also we'd like your council to consider whether staff should spend time and resources looking into other possible property acquisition of non-city owned property that may allow for expansion of a corporation yard and or allow for a new police facility off-site from this current campus. I will note that due to a lack of any identified funding, no concrete work has really been done towards any of these options, but we did want to get your direction tonight as a start of a conversation. This will be a multi-year process that we're going to go through with your council and continued direction as we figure out how we fund these facility needs. And so these are the items, once again, that we're seeking your input on tonight. No concrete decisions about taking direct action, but this will help frame how staff proceeds moving forward. And with that, Erin and I are both available for any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. I didn't realize my mic was still on. Sorry if I was breathing into it. Thank you so much for the presentation. I will start with questions to my right from council.
My first question is in regards to the community center and the Ramona Park Center. What's the usage between the two? How often are they both being used?
Yeah, I think they're both used quite frequently. They are used a little bit differently. I mean, the Grover Beach Community Center is quite a bit bigger. And so it facilitates a lot of our classes, in particular during the daytime. And some of our classes would be impacted if we did not have that center. For example, there's a roller skating class. You couldn't really make that work at Ramona Center, or it would be very boring. So there would be some impacts from a class perspective. I think Ramona Center is more commonly rented out for events. However, there are larger events that use the community center as well in the evenings.
Go ahead. I think I'm good for right now.
Okay. Questions? Questions to my left? Okay. Councilmember Wyrick?
Sure. And first, I appreciate the pictures. That's always good to give a sense of what we're talking about. And as far as the Public Works, the corporation, the maintenance yard too, what's the current status of that within our budget in the CIP program? Since you mentioned that some of the work, was going to be done this year too. So where's kind of that landing?
So we do have current budget to demolish the shop that's about 80 years old and move the mechanic shop into the bay. And we have had budget to do repaving in the back and do some concrete work. There was a larger project planned a couple of years ago in the CIP, but funding just wasn't available as we started allocating the funds. So there is currently no large-scale project scheduled for the corporation yard.
And so basically this part that you presented earlier is the status of the work that's been funded to do the CIP.
That's correct.
And one question I had, it was one of your slides that you mentioned that there's 3 different buildings where staff are working out of. I assume one City Hall, Community Center, and was the third the corporation yard? Or I just wasn't sure what the 3 buildings.
Well, actually, now that's 4 because
okay.
of the corporation yard. Across the street, that's where IT works in the building that we rent or lease from Pismo Beach. So.
Okay, gotcha. That little one over there. Yeah. Gotcha. And since it's a kind of technical term too, when you said the community center's reached its end of design life, do you just want to explain what the end of design life is referring to?
Well, that one is a little bit unknown because those were modular buildings, so they're very old. So they've approached the end of their useful life, especially with modular buildings.
Gotcha. And as far as and one of the parts that it's mentioned, but I wasn't sure how far the conversations have gone, it was just something that came to mind during this presentation, was as far as the police department looking to do a different site with other parts, is there any conversation how the 5 Cities Fire Authority Station 2 would be integrated with that on-site too, or is the idea that they're still separate? Because I know when other jurisdictions have done new police departments, they kind of have the combined public safety center model, but I'm not sure where that's
at. At this point, there's no plans to fully rehouse the fire station 2. There are a number of needs that have been identified in their own study, although entirely replacing it was not found to be one of those things. But for example, they need to expand their apparatus bay, they need roof assessment, they need a personal protective equipment storage area, they need physical fitness facilities. So the list goes on. There are a number of needs the FCFA have identified. However, the building itself is, in all of these scenarios, projected to remain.
Gotcha. But as far as the overlapping needs, it sounds like there's a couple of them, though. That's why I wasn't sure how far, because since we sometimes treat the fire station 2, even though it's the FCFA part, it's the city's obligation on the building side itself too. And if this conversation's
correct
moving forward, that's
so I don't know that there's a ton of overlapping space needs for police department and fire department. Unlike some other agencies, we don't house, for example, a co-located dispatch center or something like that would require them to be housed on the same premises. And I think they might compete for some of those storage needs if we tried to force them together.
Gotcha.
On any of the existing properties that we've looked at.
Mm-hmm. And one other question, just in general, as far as for the things that staff's looking for council to give input on, I know that it was mentioned earlier, kind of some of the staffing restraints and constraints are existing right now. What staff resources actually would be put into this, considering we got other council priorities and other things that are being worked on in general? What's the capacity to actually do this without taking away from our current council priorities?
Yeah, I think at this point, we really just have capacity to look into potential options for property acquisition. That's all that I think we could do without additional budget and or work program work as directed by your council, should that become a priority.
Okay, so staff's not looking to do a full effort into this at all. It's just looking at that as far as the part that noted that basically the spaces aren't enough. The physical locations aren't enough. So you're just looking into if we could give direction to basically explore other potential.
Yeah, kind of what parameters are we working within as we start slowly chipping away at our options here. But I think once we honed any of that, we would have to come back to your council and see if you wanted to prioritize this in the sense of, conducting another FCNA or design for different options that are not presented in this current report.
And just to add to that, we have a lot on our capital improvement program plate, from water projects, sewer projects, to street repair efforts, and those are really the priority at this particular time. We wanted to reboot this conversation around facility needs because it is an area of long-term importance. It's a multi-year process, as Ms. Erickson mentioned earlier. So I think for us, this is just resurfacing the issue, briefing the council, briefing the community, expressing what's been done, what could be done going forward, and as time permits and as opportunities allow, perhaps looking at property acquisition options if your council was open to that, and then approaching you on an as-warranted basis.
Okay, so that's why I was just trying to confirm that our 2 council priorities that we have in our 2-year goals right now are where staff efforts are going towards. So that answers that question. Thank you.
Okay.
And this is my second turn to ask, but I do have another question I forgot. And I'm not exactly certain that it's anything that could be answered right now, but in regards to the options, are some of the options better suited to make us competitive for potential grant money or matching dollars? Like, is it easier to get matching dollars if you already have the land and you're just building the facility? Or is it easier to get grant money to redo the facility? I'm particularly speaking to police, or thinking about police and that, because it seems like that's like the cornerstone of this conversation, because then you can backwards map the rest of the plans from that point. So are there I guess what I'd like to know is, are there scenarios that better position us for financial support? Because we clearly don't have the money. So the if-then that would set us up for that is the kind of the conversation I'd like to have.
I think in regards to a police facility, and speaking of grants, most of those are related to emergency operations centers. And so having a location and a proposed or designed project for that would make us competitive for a grant for that portion of the building alone. We did attempt to get some FEMA money as a seed for a police department, but they are not interested in doing so unless we are able to fund an entire facility that it would be attached to. They're not interested in giving us grant money to hold on to for a rainy day, or for when we find the funds. So having a plan in place for the entire facility would make us more competitive in that sense. Having property and some kind of concept of a project also would make us eligible for different types of loans done generally through the federal government, that are low interest loans and just a little easier to finance the project. Again, though, we're just not far enough in the process to really know or be competitive for anything like that. We would need identified property and an identified scope.
So follow up on that. Would a remodel of this facility versus an empty lot that we're mapping out be any more or less competitive, or is that
I think it's really just, we would have
theoretical?
to have a concrete idea of what's going on either spot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shovel ready. That's a
Shovel-ish
that's a
ready,
2008 throwback right there.
Any other questions? No? Okay. And I have more comments as well. So I will now open for public comment on this item. I have one speaker slip, Lauren Westfall.
I'm sorry, Chief Monroe. They just blew smoke up your ass. This was just clearly not going to be an unfunded project. All you're doing is revisiting 2018 police audit where they had repairs. 2023 police department audit for repairs. All you're doing is band-aiding. I thought you guys were agendizing this to actually put it under an unfunded. Not just to sit here and talk about how to repair stuff. You have a property over here on the corner that you guys can build on. You own property that you were going to put low-income housing on that never went through. You guys still own that property. You guys can actually save money by the Houston warehouses, and you guys can put the public works over there in those warehouses and get the cars inside the thing. you guys can rent out the community center to the Grange, which needs money. Put people over there, rent out the Grange, put the City Hall or the police station over to the community center temporarily if you want to demolish this footprint. There's options that you guys are not even considering, and I'm just a normal citizen, and I'm sitting back and I'm the one that's driving around looking at property that can be acquired, and all you guys are sitting here saying, okay, well, how can we put another Band-Aid and tape on something that needs to be repaired for the future? This is not an adequate police station for today or tomorrow. You want to move forward? Get us a police station. These cops protect us. They're the ones that need us to supply them a new police station, not just sit here and continue to Band-Aid it. A modern police station means a safer community. It's not negotiable. A new police station would improve emergency response, enhance coordination, and allow the latest technology in investigating. We need a temporary holding cell. This place doesn't have a temporary holding cell. It doesn't even have a Sally Port where you guys can bring the suspects in. It has a very dysfunctional interview room. For smart long-term investment, let's be real, kick off or stop kicking the can down the road. Stop delaying the project. Put it under the unfunded. And start acting now and build a facility that meets today's needs and not tomorrow's challenges. I'm sorry, you guys pissed me off.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Westfall.
I thought we were going to be successful tonight. There's Santa Barbara's police.
Excuse me.
Hey, kids, you know what? There's no more grant money. Have you heard? There's no more grant money. And our last bit of grant money, we decided to redo the park instead of the sewer. I know I'm harping. Yeah, we need a new cop shop. They got a new cop shop in Pismo. They're parking their vehicles on the street for over a year. Has anybody noticed? I think before we start talking about spending any more of my money that I pay in Grover Beach, I got my tax bill, did you? Maybe you don't own property and you don't know what it's like to pay taxes. But I believe before we do that, we need to get ourselves out of debt. We need to take care of the loans that haven't been paid back.
Make sure you're addressing this item, the
Kids,
facilities.
we got a deficit from this park. Let's get ahead of the game before we talk about spending more money. It's just rational. It's not the way to run a business. It's not the way to run a city. To visit something we talked about 2 years ago and then maybe go have this report done again, how much did that FCNA report cost? Anybody know? I know a lot of you weren't here 2 years ago, but some of you were, right? So let's be wise with our money. Please, I pray for you every day that you spend my money wise. If I was running my business the way you're running the city, I'd be flat broke. Hallelujah, God takes care of me. So let's start being responsible with our money, okay? Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else wish to come up and speak on this item? Seeing nobody come forward, is there anybody on the line? Okay, I will close public comment on this item and just say that it's funny, a lot of my comments, I couldn't agree with you both more. I totally understand that we do need a new police station. I even wrote the word Band-Aid in when I was reading over this item. I wrote down Band-Aid because I absolutely believe that we need a plan and be fiscally responsible and stop the Band-Aids and stop kicking the can down the road and address this. And this is the start of this conversation. This is where this multi-year conversation starts, because we can't just spend money, just write a check right now for a brand new police station. We need to be smart with our money, right? So that's why this conversation is starting right now, right with this moment, with this facilities needs update. And once it does become a priority, which we're going to deliberate now, but I believe we've commented on it before. It must be a priority coming up soon. So that's my soapbox. Those were my comments. I'll take it over to my left.
Thank you. I know that when we had our session where we created the priorities for this year, a new police station was number 4 And I was really disappointed then that we just didn't get it quite there. It needs to be a priority. I think hopefully next year we can make it a priority, because priority means focus. Squeaky wheels get attention. That's what we're trying to focus on here. It needs to be on the CIP. It needs to be listed as unfunded needs, because that's where we start focusing and trying to identify the administration. They can't help if we don't have that plan. If we haven't identified what it is that we want our money in the future spent on. Maybe someday grants will come back and there will be outside funding. But again, I love what I'm hearing, because we need to make it a priority. We need to get it on the CIP. We need a new police station so that our police department can continue to service well. So that's my soapbox for tonight.
Madam Mayor, and just to clarify really quick that we do have this as an unfunded project within the CIP. So it is in there.
Okay.
Thank you so
We
much
just
for that
need to bring it up the
clarification.
list then, I guess.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you for the clarification. All right. That's
Yes,
it. I'm done.
and of course, when we're speaking about a new police station, we're also speaking about our other facilities as well. I wanted to pause really quick, and we do need to address these questions. So just keep in mind these specific questions before I'll go one by one. But were there any other comments before we?
Well, to these questions, I would say we need to open up the possibilities besides the 4 that were presented, but also look at acquiring other properties.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as just the general part on looking to other properties, that's fine with me. And that's an area that just takes a little bit of time to keep on seeing what's out there within the city limits. And our city's not too big, so it shouldn't be the most time extensive one. Now, as far as I think within our 2 existing priorities, I do have some thoughts, because one of them is community engagement. We're talking about big dollar items that have larger impacts that we don't have the money for right now. And what options we could even look at as a council. The problem I had a couple years ago, which I probably was one of those lukewarm people too, even on the options, was because there were big decisions being made fairly quickly. And I think within our priorities of existing right now for community engagement, we could leverage, as far as a multi-year discussion, this opportunity. And I think actually, the person to my left, Councilmember Corey Driscoll, would probably be the best on our council to lead those parts too, because yes, you were the one during our goal setting one that said, let's put the PD particularly on there. And also you're in your professional background and development too, does add a lot of skills to it. I think if we actually had an ad hoc committee too, probably another person that'd be good for it would be Mayor Pro Tem Robert, because he's in the profession on this construction side and has a passion for this as well. Outside of the parts that staff's looking for a direction on too, I think if we had the long-term ad hoc committee, because we don't use them too often, the one we did last meeting's probably a short one, while this one could bring in these dynamics to really vet things before it comes to our council, because the last thing I want to see is us make some big decisions. Community doesn't like it, we don't have the money for it, and we can't follow through with it too. While at least 2 people on there could keep all those on track, put a lot more legwork and answer all these numerous questions that will come up more naturally. Because I trust that if you 2 say, all right, it's time to bring it back to the council, it probably is time to bring it back to the council. So that's one part I would recommend as far as that kind of ad hoc committee. And like I said, it's a longer run one too. It's not a time restricted one because of the nature of this. And the question on the community center, that is a very clear community engagement one too, because there are youth services and programs that are in there that I would assume if they went away too, we would all have a lot of parents in here talking about it very quickly. So if there's not even a plan on an equivalent replacement for that before that happens, it could be problematic too. We've seen this in neighboring communities not too long ago. So that's kind of my general part on this right now too. And it probably, by the end of the day too, we probably would have different options than the current options we looked at before. But have a CIP, that item that's correct in the amount of funding too, would take a whole new look of everything too first. But one step at a time is how I see this. And like I said, I'd rather recommend an ad hoc committee of Councilmember Corey Driscoll and Mayor Pro Tem Robert to help for our council lead that side of things too, to really, like I said, I'd want to see community buy-in for a lot of these things before we really proceed. We have time, and I think some of the arguments could be well made. I remember when I first got on the council, I did tour all these places. I've seen firsthand some of the deficiencies that I could tell why staff were saying we need a lot more work in this too. But it's not just the 5 of us, it's a broader community that needs to also know this too, because these are their city halls, they're their police department, they're their corporation yard, even though they don't work out there too. It's their community center, it's their Ramona Graham Park Center, all these are theirs too. And I know not a lot of residents necessarily, come and use them unless there's immediate need. So that's why I think that conversation has to go much further, that we could leverage time on.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Comments to my right?
First of all, I don't think we need another study. I don't know if that's up there as an option, but, and I think I'm hearing consensus that we aren't really happy with the options presented, so that leads us to a broader conversation of how do we explore other options. And in regards to grants, again, yes, they may come back at the federal level, but I'm not an expert in police, but I'm sure we have people in the room that are. But like in fire, there's still lots of grants around home hardening because of the amount of changes in the WUI code, and the National Fire Safety Council has quite a bit of money to spend. So I think it is worth continuing to pursue non-federal options for that. I would love to know what properties we do own. And so that we could have a quick cost-benefit analysis of them. And then I'd also love to know what's the price point for a police station that would actually meet the needs now in the next few decades, not based on that study, based on real numbers. Because I'm certain Chief Monroe knows exactly what that building looks like and could get a price point, and I think that's a good place to start for an honest conversation. I know it would differ based on if we're putting it, remodeling or putting it on a new piece of property, but I would love to get that information so we can really wrap our brain around what that could look like. That's it.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
Well, thank you for bringing this back because it's been pushed under the rug for too long, and all of you know that we need new facilities. That's not a big surprise. Where the money's going to come from, that's the bigger surprise. I think we need to come up with another option. These options, I don't think anyone's really satisfied with this, so we can discuss options, maybe have a committee come up with some different plans to acquiring some new property, investigating the properties that we have to see if they would work. But definitely new facilities are on the horizon, and we're looking into those with responsible funding for them.
Okay, so what I am hearing is that we're not happy with any of the options and we need to go back to the drawing board. Do not get rid of the community center. I also believe that it provides a lot to our families, and especially the families that are in South Grover. It keeps us all connected. And we are in favor of look towards acquiring property that might be able to service these needs. And then not doing another study, but having a further discussion, talking about properties we do know, or we do have price point for the police station, if that's an idea or a question. I, under the understanding that this is not a council priority at this moment, and we know that we can't spend a lot of staff time on this, but we can at least provide some direction to move forward. And then hopefully, like we were mentioning here in a little bit, it could become a priority. And then the mention of an ad hoc, I would like to see that as we get closer to it becoming a priority. I understand doing the community engagement. I think that we can all do that individually, but I would say once it becomes a priority of the council or the bigger discussion, then we can start that ad hoc committee. What do you think?
I'm not sure if it would become priority without an ad hoc committee to really set the tone for it too, because with two different people working towards, by the time we might look at reconsider priorities, they could delve into the arguments a lot more too, where if two people on this council say this needs to be a priority, it's probably not going to be hard to get a third at that point too. So I think an ad hoc starting out early so they have the confidence to move forward with this is better than waiting till it becomes priority than saying, okay, now work on it. And one thing I did want to clear about the community center side too, it's not that, because, truth be told, a lot of people have emotional ties to community center. I mean, yeah, I grew up here. I know people who use it as kids too. But the nature of what I was saying as far as that site is not to have the displacement of things. Because if it was saying it's no longer going to be there, it's going to shut down, and those programs don't go anywhere, and we don't have a plan, or there's no community center to, that's because Rona doesn't have all the rooms in site to do all that work. And then that's where I'd be really hesitant on that conversation because, once again, how are we engaged with the people who are using it as it is right now too, and what's acceptable or not. So still, I think an ad hoc would be good now because all those questions, everything else could get answered right off the bat too, and we do have 2 people who are on it. So that's why I'd rather.
What is the objective of the ad hoc committee? I'm not clear.
Yeah. So the objective, I think, is because it is in our multi-year goals, and this kind of conversation is not a one and done council meeting conversation. There's a lot to it, and both of them have different backgrounds and stuff to really be able to identify what we're doing that we need for making our decisions. Because right now, the process is pretty kind of top heavy and stuff as far as goes to the council. But what are the things in the community that people would want to hear and know about first too? Like, so their backgrounds both kind of cover a lot of different areas that people would want to know. So having them.
I guess I'm still not clear because the previous ad hoc committee is very clear. You're going to have a council handbook at the end. What are they producing at the end? Because without a clear directive, I think we're setting them up for a lot of wasted time and energy.
Well, I mean, I think actually it's quite simple as that. If they both say as ad hoc committee that, we're going to bring this back on, that this should be brought back for the priorities and stuff if we're reconsidering priorities, that's the first easy one. That's not too far in the future. But from that point on too, because this has a lot of steps in it. I mean, we're at the beginning of this part too, but for all the steps that could occur if we move forward in these conversations, to then say, okay, we're going to make ad hoc to talk about this one aspect here, then this one aspect here. That gets a little more clunkier versus them actually working with staff to go through more of the entire process. To, like I said, I don't want to have, I don't want it to pop up on our agendas again and again too for us to go, okay, well, how about this little piece? And because I'm not sure for the majority of new people here too, but even looking at the options, say make a decision now on which options. 72 hours to look at the agenda packet. How much time was that? So that's where both of them could really do a lot more of the legwork that comes to our meetings with.
Mm-hmm. So if I could get some clarity from staff, would you need a motion for us to create an ad hoc committee, or would you just like concurrence between the council?
From a staff perspective, concurrence, direction from the council would suffice in expressing that. And again, staff will defer to the council on this topic. I think I look at it from a time frame standpoint. We'll be addressing the current priorities with the council in February, doing a mid-year check-in on the implementation of our current priorities and asking the council if you want to make any tweaks to the priorities. Mm-hmm. Since we're in the middle of a 2-year cycle, we wouldn't recommend completely revamping all the priorities, but this is a chance for the council to make sure the priorities are still relevant and valid for where you want to put your staff's focus over the next year in particular. So this is a topic that the council could consider in the February timeframe. If council did an ad hoc committee, we probably would have one meeting between now and February, just be mindful of what's on our workload, on our plate, and we don't have, I think, a ton of material to bring forward just yet. We would look to do that in the next couple of months and engage the ad hoc committee if created by the council as a way of bringing further information forward to your council.
Okay.
Oh, I think our city attorney wants to add on that.
Yeah, if you do plan to create an ad hoc committee, that would need to be agendized, and that can happen at the next regularly scheduled meeting.
Okay. So like direction provided, but then.
Yeah, but for the actual creation, it would need to be agendized.
Okay, I understand. Thank you so much. Okay, so again, even though I do agree with creating an ad hoc eventually, I don't think it's the time right now. So I would not be supportive of giving direction to staff for an ad hoc committee. But I'm just one person, so I'm going to look to my
I feel the same way, that this conversation has moved the emphasis already, and that conversation can happen in February. And if that becomes more of a priority, then there'd actually be work to do for the ad hoc committee.
Mayor Pro Tem? Okay.
I agree. Once we make it a priority, then to form the ad hoc, and I would be happy to serve on it.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you so much. All right, so was there anything that was not addressed by us, any other questions that we need to address? Did we clear everything up?
I did want to circle back on the community center because I agree with Clint that I don't want to lead with we're not doing anything, like we're not getting rid of the community center But that we are maintaining programs, yes, and staying open and flexible in all the options that are brought forward to us, because there could be a scenario that we can't foresee that makes that make the best sense ever, even though recognizing it would be a lost for some people as far as, but this is where I grew up. But the programming is essential. We know the impact it has on youth and communities.
Agreed. Okay. Thank you for that. Anything else? Any other comments? All right. So staff has received our direction and we're ending this. Okay, good. Thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you for the discussion. Great discussion. Okay, thank you so much. Perfect. Now, on to the next item. We are going to go on to the council committee reports, and I will start with Councilmember McQuarrie Driscoll.
I have nothing to report this evening.
Thank you. Councilmember Tuggle.
I have nothing to report this evening.
Oh my goodness. Okay, Councilmember Wyrick.
Yeah, I'll break that one. The Community Action Partnership of San Luis Obispo County, aka CAPSLO, our board of directors met on Thursday, September 25th. And other than some routine items and reports from our board liaisons to their programs, we did go through our auditor's report, which was a clean and unmodified one too, which is very good considering the amount of programs that is through the organizations and all their different funding sources. And I was on the audit committee too when we met with the finance committee too prior to it going to the board too. And the findings were actually pretty clear and welcomed. And also we got clarification that the National Community Action, which Community Action Partnership, there's a lot of these entities throughout the entire nation. Our CAPSLO is just our local one. And for the organizational standards, that CAPSLO did receive, again, 100% on meeting them too. So that was a good sign. And yep, the only other thing too I'll just mention is that we had a 60th anniversary celebration this past Saturday, October 11th, that I attended with other board members too. And there's a lot of longtime supporters and new ones as well.
Good. Okay. Mayor Pro Tem? No meetings. Okay. As for me, SLOCOG met and we went over our regional transit plan, or what's known as the RTP. And then we discussed the future financial uncertainties, especially when it comes to the transition to electric vehicles and less gas tax, and how we can move forward with that that transition. And then I also had the South San Luis Obispo Sanitation District, and we received the final report on the wastewater treatment plan, the redundancy plan, the second clarifier. Everything's all good to go. So that was very good, and we closed, and everything's good. So that's it for my committee reports. As far as our general public comment, I just want to clarify that we have directed staff to agendize the Central Coast Blue project, and I was wondering if you could speak just a little bit on that update and anything else you want to add to Central Coast Blue.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, we are looking at bringing that forward to the council by the end of this calendar year. We have 3 more meetings left to go before December. We're just trying to slot it into one of those meetings. So that is on our radar, and we'll be bringing that forward for a council update. We're also working with Pismo Beach to coordinate a community meeting for residents right around the project site with a noticing that would go out to property owners and residents. That will be held probably mid-November, more details to come. So both of those dates are in progress.
Thank you so much. Okay, on to the rest of the council communications. Councilmember McQuarrie Driscoll.
Just a couple of things. One, I was very moved by our proclamations today. I thought, having 4 and having them be so important to all of us in the community, I just wanted to share that. That touched me greatly. And I just feel I need to remind everyone, I guess including myself, I need to say it out loud, that all of us sitting here, up here on the dais, we are residents of Grover Beach. Everything we vote on impacts our lives too. And I just think that deserves to be spoken every once in a while, because I do take all of this very seriously. It does impact me and my family, every decision I make, not just my neighbors, but my family. And I want people to understand that all of my peers, we're all in the same boat. We are residents of Grover Beach. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Councilmember Tuggle.
All right, I'll be the first to talk about Cal Cities.
Hey, yo.
And it was a great experience. It was good to connect, network, learn, get exposure to best practices. There was a comment about the fact that we weren't at Tippecop. I wish we could have been. Up until very recently, one of my best friends was the head of Special Olympics for the Central Coast. So that's an event that I don't usually miss, but it was really worthwhile to be away. And echoing the Public Works response to the water main, that was amazingly swift, pun intended, response. So thanks, team. And that's it.
Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Wyrick.
Yeah, so for the League of California Cities, I left on Tuesday, October 7th that evening. So yes, I missed Tippecop too because we were there all the way through Friday, October 10th. And a couple different things is I attended some multiple educational sessions, learned different possible ways to work better for our city. One of them included the using development agreements to build community benefits projects, which focuses on how cities could create kind of a negotiated contracts between development applicants and itself to provide more tangible benefits towards its residents and communities. And it's a topic I've talked informally with others about too. So this session provided a lot more clarity within that. Another one was the ADUs, group homes, and short-term rentals, local regulation enforcement. And they shared a lot of the best practices on how cities actually can regulate them. They can't regulate everything within coastal cities in particular, in the coastal zone. But there's a lot of things that they can do too, so they're operating in a way that the communities do want and need. And it was actually, and one thing too, I'm actually wearing their pin, is that I did get recognized for, and the Mayors and Council Members Department has their torch program too, so I did get level 2, that's why I'm wearing the little pin. And the keynote speaker on Sunday, Erin Brockovich, gave a really empowering speech too, because her whole work was engaging communities with their local government and other levels of government to make a difference. And when she showed some of the pictures of communities that exist right now in America without clean water of all sorts of different colors, that was pretty unsettling to see what people do face too. So it's good when people do stick up to make sure that that's addressed. Just a couple of little things is, thanks Mayor Pro Tem Robert on those good pancakes at the Grange pancake breakfast, as always. And of course my little show and tell always, because the Grover Beach Community Library on Saturday had their last book sale of the year. So what did I get? One that's probably too big for me to go through the rest of this year, but it's the Six Sigma handbook. I'm sure a lot of people have been familiar with that management style and training. Another one was 100 Things Successful Leaders Do, Little Lessons in Leadership, bite-sized, all over the place. And of course, the one area that everyone runs into, leadership or not, is get out of your own way. I think that says it all too, as far as many problems that we all experience in life and in leadership. And the other last thing I'll mention is on Saturday, October 4th, I attended our local National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI, San Luis County. Their walk used to be called Beautiful Minds Walk. Now it's the NAMI Walks. And there was a lot of supporters, including different residents in our city I recognized, that were there to support NAMI's work in helping those with lived experience and their loved ones, while continuing to work to make our society much more compassionate by reducing the stigma. Because as we all know, mental health was, and actually still in many ways too, not something that people do talk about, that many people experience. And actually, they had me speak and shared my own appreciation for what they did, because I'm someone with lived experience as well. And I know that the work that they're all doing is supporting a lot of other people, not just in their personal circles, but beyond that too, from anyone else, others loved one too. So those are the things I have to report.
Thank you so much. Mayor Pro Tem?
I've been out of pocket for a couple of weeks, so I don't have a lot to report. But I did want to mention the Luminous Alliance had their annual fashion show, who raised money for battered women. Is that
the victims of domestic violence?
Domestic violence, yeah. And if you do you know the title of the YouTube that you posted?
It was Lumina Days. I'll say it in my council.
Oh, you're going to say?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm going to say some stuff about it too.
But you'll see the mayor and the Jeff Lee, Chambers, Jeff Chambers,
yeah.
Do a little presentation on the stand. But you'll see Anita right in the back.
Yeah, she's good. Yeah.
Her blue dress, she hates it. Anyway, that was it.
All right. Well, as for my council communications, I did attend the Lumina Alliance fashion show called Lumina Days. I was a model along with the CEO of the chamber, Jeff Chambers, including Parks and Rec Chair Anita Shower, and lots of the city manager in Arroyo Grande, Matt Downing, lots of great people there supporting. And Lumina Alliance has a location here in Grover Beach, so it was great to support them and see everybody out. And it was a phenomenal event. We really do appreciate all the services that they provide to our community in SLO County. And then, yes, the League of California Cities conference, it was wonderful. Just networking with the other cities, seeing what other cities are doing. I went to many info sessions with some of my fellow council members and the keynote speakers as well. Specifically one on other cities and how they are dealing with parking. And we even visited the other city. It was Seal Beach, which is very close to Long Beach. Got a lot of really good information there. They look very similar to, actually Seal Beach looks like a combination of the Village and Grover Beach together. So seeing what they're doing to address parking was fascinating, and I'm very appreciative of all the knowledge and insight that other council members, their consultants, and others gave. So that's it for my council communications. So we will now move on to the city manager's reports and comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Just 2 items for me tonight. First is Grover Beach is part of a pilot program along with Arroyo Grande, sponsored by the Integrated Waste Management Authority, called Trash to Treasure. It is a unique program where residents are encouraged to go to the IWMA website and submit an item that they think somebody might want to have, and then on Saturday to put the item in front of their house and have people be able to go by and pick it up on Saturday and Sunday. We are asked to make sure the items are removed by Sunday so that they're not cluttering the sidewalk and debris. But this is being done in preparation for the fall cleanup week that Waste Connections is doing this coming week. So this is a great pilot effort. IWMA is seeing if this can be scaled up countywide, and our city, along with Arroyo Grande, are testing it out. So this week, submit your items, and then Saturday and Sunday put them out, and let's see if we can reuse, recycle, redo these different pieces. And then secondly, it's a plug for our annual Trunk or Treat Halloween event coming up on Friday, October 24th, 5 o'clock till dark at 16th Street Park this year because of the construction at Ramona Park. This is a partnership with the Grover Beach Rotary Club, so it's a great opportunity for kids to come out and be in a safe space to trunk or treat across all the different cars and vehicles. There are free hot dogs, games, fun for the whole family. Looking forward to a great event. Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much. All right, now we'll move on to City Attorney Bras Gonzalez. Why don't you do reports and comments and lead us into closed session?
No reports and comments from me, but I will get to the closed session. It is the intention of the City Council to meet in closed session concerning the following item: conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to paragraph 2 or 3 of subdivision D of Government Code section 54956.9. There's one case, a Brown Act demand to cure and correct. And this item pertains to a cure and correct demand received from Debbie Peterson and pertaining to the Planning Commission meeting that occurred on September 2nd, 2025.
Thank you so much. I will now open public comment on this item. I do not have any speaker slips. If anybody wish to come up? See nobody move forward. Is there anybody on the line? No? Then I will close public comment and we will go into closed session. Thank you for joining us tonight.